Fire on the Mountain is a novel by Anita Desai, published in 1977. The psychological thriller novel is from an omniscient third-person narrator about a woman named Nanda Kaul and her great-granddaughter Raka in the late 1970s. Nanda lives in Karagnano, a secluded house in the lower Himalayan village of Kasauli. Kasauli is a hill station located in the Solan district in Himachal Pradesh, India. Before we start the detailed summary, don't forget to like and subscribe. The novel is divided into 3 parts. Nanda Kaul enjoys her peaceful retreat at Karagnano, her isolated hilltop colonial home in Kasauli. However, her tranquility is interrupted by the sight of the postman approaching, sparking anxiety that he may bear unwelcome news. Reflecting on the history of the area and its previous English inhabitants, predominantly maiden women, the postman waits for Nanda Kaul's cook, Ram Lal, to deliver the mail together. Nanda Kaul receives a letter from her daughter, Asha, least loved or, at any rate, the most exasperating of her daughters. Asha had requested her to care for Raka, Nanda Kaul's great-granddaughter. Asha convinced Raka's mother, the depressed Tara, to reconcile with her abusive husband, a diplomat in Geneva. Raka's recent recovery from typhoid necessitates a cooler climate than Bombay offers, as Asha was traveling there to help her other daughter, Veena, in her confinement. Despite Nanda Kaul's past of tending to children and entertaining guests as the wife of a demanding vice-chancellor in the small university town in Punjab, she resents the disruption Raka's arrival will bring to her solitary existence. Unwilling to entertain old acquaintances like Ila Das, her friend from school and college days, who telephones her and is excited to learn of Raka's arrival, Nanda Kaul makes an excuse to avoid Ila Das. Nanda Kaul frets over the impending invasion of her privacy. All she wanted was to be alone, to have Karagnano to herself, in this period of her life when stillness and calm were all that she wished to entertain. She and Ram Lal discuss cooking potato chips with ketchup for Raka as this appeals to children. As Ram Lal goes to pick up Raka, Nanda Kaul struggles with the prospect of entertaining and catering to the needs of a child and the loss of her cherished solitude. Upon Raka's arrival at Karagnano, Nanda Kaul's initial impression is one of disapproval, likening the girl's frail appearance and somewhat bulging eyes more than ever her resemblance to an insect. Their embrace was unaccommodating, and they quickly separated. As Raka explores her new surroundings, she encounters unfamiliar sights such as the Pasteur Institute, which Ram Lal explains produces serum for rabid dogs. He warns her against venturing there due to the presence of jackals and ghostly apparitions. Nanda Kaul grows increasingly irritated by Raka's excursions into the cliffs, returning home battered and filthy, yet neither addresses the issue. Despite their strained interactions, Nanda Kaul begins to admire Raka's independent spirit, recognizing similarities between them. During one exploration, Raka stumbles upon the ravine littered with bones, blood, and a sunbathing snake. After an unsuccessful attempt to enter the closed Kasauli club, she returns home to Karagnano, where Ram Lal expresses concern that she should have an ayah to take care of her and take her to the club. As a windstorm looms, Nanda Kaul observes Raka and Ram Lal preparing Raka's bath. Nanda Kaul proposes a walk with Raka, who resists, preferring to scavenge for food during her evening strolls due to her not having enough tea-time meals. During their walk, Nanda describes the dilapidated houses, bemoaning human intrusion in the hills. She suggests, "Would you like to go to school in Kasauli, Raka?" But Raka refuses the idea, disliking the notion of discipline, order and obedience. At Monkey Point, Nanda urges Raka to climb alone as she feels unable to join. Surveying the landscape from atop, Raka feels isolated, akin to a shipwreck survivor adrift at sea. "I'm shipwrecked," Raka exulted, "I'm shipwrecked and alone." She clung to a rock, "My boat, alone in my boat on the sea," she sang. When Nanda suggests, "Why don't you go down to the club sometimes?" Raka rebuffs, prompting an unexpected revelation from Nanda, who sees herself mirrored in Raka's independence. "Raka, you really are a great-grandchild of mine, aren't you? You are more like me than any of my children or grandchildren. You are exactly like me, Raka." Despite Raka's reluctance to acknowledge this outspoken advance, both are left embarrassed. Learning of Kasauli club ballroom dances from Ram Lal, Raka ventures there one night, only to witness a disturbing scene of masquerade partiers dancing, singing and drinking. Raka had a panic attack and ran from the club, remembering how her father used to come home drunk and physically abuse her mother. As Nanda notices Raka's changed demeanor, they witness a distant valley fire, captivating Raka's attention throughout the night. Nanda, observing Raka's rapport with Ramlal, feels a twinge of jealousy. Asha's letter arrives bearing news. Raka's mother Tara had had another breakdown and was in a nursing home in Geneva, and Asha was flying to Switzerland to be with her. Nanda notices Raka's lack of interest in her mother's letters, pondering leaving Carignano to her in will. Reluctant to part ways, Nanda considers Raka's future at Carignano. During a tea session interrupted by a massive rainstorm, Nanda recounts her father's adventurous exploits in Tibet, capturing Raka's keen interest. As the rain subsides, they go outside to admire the post-storm clarity, prompting Nanda to reminisce about her mother's fondness for rainy days. Epitomized by the blooming pink lilies the following morning. Rainy days are lily days. Rainy days are lily days. Over breakfast, Raka inquires about her mother's visits to Kasauli, revealing Nanda's difficulty in distinguishing between her grandchildren. Learning of her mother's illness elicits little reaction from Raka, who is accustomed to her mother's frequent ailments. Exploring the burnt house on the hill, Raka revels in its untamed essence. It was the ravaged, destroyed and barren spaces in Kasauli that drew her. Nanda shares wild tales of her Kashmiri childhood, unaware of Raka's growing impatience with her chatter and the disruption of their routine. Despite Nanda's attempts to beguile Raka with stories of her past in orchards and private zoos, Raka remains indifferent, even questioning her great-grandmother's honesty. Observing Raka's prolonged absences, Nanda realizes her great-granddaughter's affinity for nature over Carignano's comforts. Acknowledging that her attempts to captivate Raka's interest may be futile, Nanda Kaul receives a telephone call from Ila Das, and she invites her to come and meet Raka tomorrow. Ila Das approaches Carignano, accompanied by schoolboys who mock her appearance and voice. Nanda Kaul reflects on Ila's shrill voice. The pair moves to the veranda, where Ila warmly greets and kisses a reticent Raka. As Ila reminisces about their shared past, Raka becomes weary of the conversation. Ila mentions the comfort she found in Nanda Kaul's home and recalls playing badminton with Nanda's husband and Miss David, only to abruptly fall silent. Formerly from a wealthy family, her brothers blew the family fortune, leaving Ila and her sister scrambling for jobs. Nanda Kaul recommended her husband hire Ila as a teacher in the home science department. Ila struggles to make ends meet, despite now working as a government social worker in villages. Nanda hesitates to invite Ila to live with her. Before leaving, Ila talks about the villagers' inability to access healthcare and the prevalence of child marriages due to rampant misogyny, worsened by the village priest. Meanwhile, Raka sneakily snatched up the box of matches before climbing down the ravine. Later, as Ila goes to the bazaar, the grain seller warns her it is not good for a memsahib to walk alone in the dark, having heard Preet Singh, the father of the child bride, spouting obscene things about Ila. Just as her hut comes into sight, Preet Singh attacks her and strangles and sexually abuses her. Nanda Kaul receives a call from the police. She is summoned by the police station to identify Ila Das's body, leaving her shocked and disillusioned as she confronts the falsehoods of her existence. Her father's supposed travels, the absence of wild animals in their lives, her husband's lifelong affair with Miss David, the mathematics mistress, her lack of affection for her children, and the realization that residing in Carignano was more of a necessity than a deliberate choice. As she wrestles with these revelations, Raka delivers another blow by disclosing, "Look, Nanny, I have set the forest on fire. Look, Nanny, look, the forest is on fire." The novel ends with, "Down in the ravine, the flame spat and crackled around the dry wood and through the dry grass, and black smoke spiraled up over the mountain. Let's analyze fire on the mountain." Loneliness and alienation form the crux of the novel. Throughout her life, Nanda Kaul suffered a loveless marriage filled with domestic duties. Striving to maintain her husband's esteemed position as vice-chancellor while receiving little respect or care from him or their children. This unfulfilling existence left her feeling like a prisoner, disconnected from herself and others, ultimately leading to a reclusive lifestyle where she avoids social interactions and identifies with the solitude of nature. In contrast, Raka, her great-granddaughter, seeks solitude as a result of her traumatic childhood marked by her father's abuse and neglect and her mother's frequent emotional breakdowns, finding solace in her thoughts and observations. Unlike Raka, Ila Das yearns for companionship, feeling isolated and miserable in her solitary life, forced to be destitute by her brother's decadent lifestyle. Despite her desperate need for human connection, she struggles to find it, sometimes imposing herself on others due to her profound loneliness. Nanda Kaul, desiring solitude, finds herself frequently overwhelmed by memories of her troubled past. Despite this, she finds solace in recounting tales of her father's supposed adventures as a great explorer in Tibet, describing a life filled with exotic animals and marvelous relics. However, these stories unravel as mere fabrications when the truth emerges. Her father never embarked on such expeditions, and her life was far from the adventurous tales she spun. These lies served as a coping mechanism, allowing Nanda Kaul to bear her reality as an ignored wife in a loveless marriage. Unfortunately, these falsehoods only further alienate her from her truth, complicating her relationship with her great-granddaughter, Raka. Meanwhile, Raka, struggling with her reality shaped by her parents' dysfunctional relationship, seeks refuge in a fantasy world where she can exert control over her surroundings. This detachment from reality reflects a coping mechanism born out of her tumultuous upbringing. Let's analyze important symbols of fire on the mountain. Raka's name holds irony, given that it signifies the moon in Sanskrit, a symbol of stillness and grace, yet Raka's demeanor contrasts starkly with these qualities. Unlike the serene and radiant connotations of her namesake, Raka appears unkempt, lacking elegance, and often appearing dirty and scruffy. This irony deepens considering Hindu mythology's portrayal of the moon as a god associated with tranquility and beauty. Nanda Kaul's initial impression of Raka: minute and fine, on thin, precarious legs with extravagantly large and somewhat bulging eyes, describing her as delicate yet somewhat awkward. With disproportionately large and protruding eyes resembling those of an insect or a dark cricket. This initial depiction hints at Raka's affinity with nature over human company, her untamed nature, and her resilience despite appearing flimsy. Fire embodies the destruction and purification that Raka seeks to harness by igniting the mountain. In her mind, the flames hold the power to incinerate the traumas inflicted upon her by the patriarchal society she inhabits alongside Nanda Kaul, purging the world of the debauched revelers from the club who epitomize excess and exploitation. The burnt house atop the hill holds particular significance for Raka, as it mirrors her inner turmoil and serves as a stark reminder of the abuse and fear she suffered within the walls of her home. This hill, with its one destroyed house and one unbuilt one, on the ridge under the fire-singed pines, appealed to Raka with the strength of a strong sea current, pulling, dragging. Despite traditionally symbolizing security and comfort, for Raka, the house represented a prison of suffering and powerlessness. Hope you like, share and subscribe for more videos.